The mission of FSU Coach is to prepare and equip the next generation of coaches and sports professionals with best practices and current research to enable them to pursue excellence. We have 2 academic programs, the online graduate certificate, which is 4 classes, and also a 10-class master's in athletic coaching. Our graduate certificate and master's program can be started at any time, either the summer, fall, or spring.
The types of classes that we offer focus on the athlete as a whole person. We focus on the theory and practice, the research, the helping skills. I came to FSU Coach because I truly believed in the mission and the purpose of the program.
I think I have my dream job being a head coach at Florida State, but I know there's always more ways that I can help my athletes and better prepare as a coach. If you're interested in going into coaching or joining the FSU Coach program, I would just say don't even think about it and do it.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of FSU Coach Live. Renee, believe it or not, this is the last interview, last conversation of the spring semester. We're going to take a break for summer, but thank you for joining me for this. I'm really excited to hear what you have to share. Maybe give us a little bit of a background of how you got into volleyball and what you're doing now.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me. It started at a young age. I've always kind of grown up playing sports and started in gymnastics and figure skating, archery, and then started getting into more of the team sports like basketball and volleyball, and then played all through high school here in Omaha, Nebraska at Marion, and then went on and played at Nebraska, volleyball and basketball in the late 90s, early 2000, and kind of had a lot of injuries in my career. And so coaching seemed to be a very smooth transition. I love being in the gym. I love teaching how to play things. I'm a physical education teacher. And so coaching is kind of like an extension of my physical education background. But honestly, it was an easy transition. I played sports my whole life. I belong in a gym. I think I'll be there until probably the day I die. I love it. I love every moment that I'm here at Scott Catholic, and I loved it at my previous jobs too. But really it's just kind of in me. The teaching side of it, the coaching side of it has just always been kind of in me.
You talked about playing multiple sports growing up, and I'm curious your thoughts on sports specialization and this belief by many parents. Maybe not necessarily they believe it, but they see everybody else doing it, therefore they do it, which is, I got my kid, I want them to have a scholarship in volleyball, so I've got to put them in at 4 and let's get rolling, and we're going to do this.
I'm a multi-sport advocate through and through. I'm now on the AVCA High School and Interscholastic Board, and one of our major pillars is multi-sportism and finding ways for kids to play more sports for a longer period of time. So I feel like my childhood is very similar to a lot of people, but up to about age 10. And now it seems like specialization is happening at that age of 10. And there's so much research that shows that it really increases burnout, injury, all the things. But at the same time, I feel like parents are sold a hope and a dream that if you don't do this, then they won't make varsity, or if you don't do this, they can't get a scholarship. And they really play on parents' emotions. And I think when you play on emotions, parents want what's best for their kid. And so they're going to do everything possible to make that happen. But full circle moment, you get going at 10 and under, I don't think you want to peak when you're in 7th grade either, or 8th grade. So I love the kid who maybe comes in a little bit underdeveloped because they haven't played clubs since they were 10 or younger. And then those kids tend to just keep getting better and better, and they're peaking like their senior year, or they still have potential when they get to college, or they don't have that burnout senior year. And they're super excited for the next step of 4 more years in college or 2 more years in college or whatever they might do. And they tend to be a little bit healthier. They have a little bit less of those nagging continuous use type of injuries. And so we have a small school. We have about 720 people here at Scott Catholic. It's a co-ed private school. And I would say about 80% of my volleyball players do another sport. It could be track. It could be tennis. I have a lot of kids that play tennis. Not a ton of basketball players, which makes me sad, but they tend to do kind of the volleyball season and then the spring season. And then they're also participating in club at the same time.
Yeah. Is there the potential for conflicts between you and other coaches about players you want playing for volleyball, but the other coach wants them to play for this sport? how do you navigate that as a coach, where you want that player on your squad because you know they're valuable to you, but you also have to maintain, dare I say, positive relationships with your colleagues?
Depending on the age, there's a lot of freshmen that maybe they play club soccer, and the club soccer coach is like, well, you have to be at everything. You can't miss anything. To me, this is not on the kids to make this decision. It's on the adults in the situation to make the decision. So for me, I will give a little bit just so that kid can do two sports, but I'm not going to be, you have to do this or you can't do this, because I don't think that's fair to a 14-year-old. I think that as adults, we need to work together so that the kids can have a good experience, and not it's me against the soccer coach or me against the basketball coach. So ideally, you want to work with the coaches so that the kids can have a better experience and not have to make those decisions like picking at the age of 14, where you really don't know what you're going to be really good at. As they get older, I think the balancing act is a little bit more on the kids. I think they have to understand their bodies a little bit more. They have to know when to say no, and they have to know when, they can maybe burn it on both sides of the candle a little bit. But still, as adults, if a kid looks a little bit wiped out, they're not going to do me any good, and they're not going to do the other coach any good. So I think it's important to understand that you advocate for them to get rest when they need it, but also help them with schedules when times do get busy. Like June in Nebraska, they're still in their club season because it goes all the way till July. And we saw all of our high school stuff in the summer too. So in June, they're kind of double dipping on the volleyball side of it. And some of them are also doing basketball and other sports outside of those two. So it's a balancing act. And I've learned that communication is key. If they have a calendar ahead of time, they know what to expect from us on the volleyball side. They can work around it on their end a little bit better.
I was on social media recently, dangerous, I know, but
yeah.
One of the comments I saw from a coach was this concern between club sport and high school sport. And there's this friction, primarily because the high school coach wants this player, the club coach wants this player, and now the player is torn between the two of them. His argument was we should just have contracts for the players. If you play for high school, you don't play for club, and vice versa. And I understand the intent of that, which is we want to take care of the athletes, make sure they're not overburdened, burning out, training, likelihood of injuries, etc. What are your experiences balancing that club school dilemma?
So in Nebraska, it's taken care of for us. If they are a participant in our high school, our NSAA, they are not allowed to participate in club during that 3-month season. And so because of that, you have this, it's a weird dynamic, but it's not bad. Like the clubs know the 3-month volleyball season is the 3-month high school volleyball season, and the clubs really can't touch those kids. And we have a lot of rules in place so that doesn't happen. Like a kid can't go and participate in a club practice with multiple people, but they could go do a lesson with a coach. And so we don't have to worry about it until June, when we start our running and lifting and open gyms and like high school camp at the end of May. And we also have a practice rule. So once my season's over, I cannot work with more than 4 volleyball kids until after Memorial Day. So that kind of leaves it to whatever sport they want to do and whatever club they want to do. And so it's a very clean process here in Nebraska. We don't have I'm not going to play for my high school, I'm going to go play club. They can do both, and it works out pretty well. But I don't think that's the same in every single state.
I can assure you it's not, unfortunately. It sounds like you have a pretty good system there. One of the challenges I hear a lot is from club coaches trying to almost possess their athletes, simply because for many of them that is their living. That's how they make their money. Do you ever see that in Nebraska, or is it a lot of high school coaches are also club coaches? How does that work?
There is a little bit of, yes, high school versus club. There is a little bit of that. I feel like the clubs maybe put a little too much emphasis that they are the best for the kids. They train the best. They do it the right way. The high school coaches are idiots. But at the same time, I've seen some clubs like make pretty good players into pretty bad players. So, I mean, I'm a firm believer that it's not there's great coaches everywhere and there's bad coaches everywhere. And it just depends on what you get. You could get a great coach at a bad club or a great high school coach at a high school that's not very competitive, or you could get both, and that would be awesome. But I think when you're paying people that much money, they're expected to be good at their job. But in Nebraska, I think we have the highest per capita amount of volleyball players based on our state size. And so when you're looking at that volume of players, I can tell you for a fact, there are not enough great coaches to coach all of them. And there's too many kids. And so, a big thing that's really important is coach development, right? Which is basically kind of what you do. And how much can we develop these young coaches and then encourage girls who are starting to end playing to go into coaching. And so there's that cycle that happens too, but there is a little bit of possession with the clubs. But I have pretty strict rules with my kids that if their club coaches say they can't do anything with me, they have to talk to me about that. And then I will work with them on a plan, because I don't know any club coach that says it's not okay to pepper or it's not okay to get some extra serve and serve receive, but we'll keep them away from like net play or something that could increase injury as they build up to nationals. So again, I think it's adults working together so that kids can have a great experience on both sides.
Yeah, interesting perspectives, given that each state has different rules and expectations, et cetera. Can you talk a little bit about coach development in your state, but also volleyball? Because there seems to be a systemic problem in the U.S. that we have a massive amount of coaches who have little to no training. And there's also little accountability to what those coaches are doing. Within schools, there may be some form of coach education. I'm curious what it is in Nebraska. But then also when we get into club sports, a lot of times it's dare I say, the Wild West, where coaches can come in and say whatever they want and do whatever they want, and there's not too much accountability. So what's the perspective of training and development in club sports and training and development in the high school?
I think at the end of the day, we have to all realize we're on the same team. Like, this isn't a high school versus club or a club versus high school or volleyball versus basketball. We're all in the business of athletics. We're all in the business of hopefully developing and empowering young women and young men to go on to do great things. And we should all be in the business of hopefully making it a great experience for everybody. So on the volleyball side of it, I think we're a special breed. I think the AVCA does a great job of creating opportunities for coaches at all levels. Beach, men's, high school, I think they're starting to add in some pro. And so you're starting to see a coaching tree kind of grow out with lots of development opportunities, mentorship opportunities from the AVCA. Just in the state of Nebraska, we kind of are lovingly called the Volley State. And it's true. We do a multi-sport clinic for the high school program, like the high school coaches at the end of July. At that multi-sport clinic, they have all the high school sports in Nebraska, plus strength and conditioning, athletic directors. And the volleyball one is the largest attended, with like 300 coaches attending yearly just for the volleyball portion of that clinic. And then we also have the Nebraska Spring Game, where they tie a coaches clinic onto that. And they usually go to a small town somewhere in Nebraska. And then the Supernovas are starting to do some coaching clinic opportunities as well. And so lots of opportunities for coaches development. I believe Love Volleyball is part of Premier, one of our clubs here, and they paid for all the Premier coaches to go to AVCA. So I feel in Nebraska, if you want to become a better coach, you have multiple opportunities. AVCA also does a virtual clinic, and it's recorded, so you can get this coaches clinic, this virtual clinic, and then you have like 3 months to watch everything. So you don't have to watch it all live, but that's also been a very good opportunity for current coaches.
My experience, and I think my challenge, is that you alluded to, coaches have opportunities to get trained if they want, but a lot of coaches may not want or find it inconvenient or too expensive. What are the requirements to be a coach in a school in Nebraska? Do you have to complete annual training? Is it once you've completed it, you're good? Or is it really, as long as you're doing the concussion, the main health and safety, AED, CPR, you can coach?
I believe every high school has different evaluation procedures for their coaches. So that would be high school by high school. We do not have to, like, I teach and coach, but we have coaches in our building who are not teachers in our building. But if you're not, you still have to do a teaching certificate, but it's a different certificate in the state of Nebraska to be a head coach at any level. So our JV head coach, reserve head coach, freshman head coach, all have to have the same. It's almost like a modified teaching certificate, so they can, and it's through the state of, like, the Department of Education in the state of Nebraska. So that's a requirement. Then you have your NFHS courses that you're talking about. That is required. CPR is also required. And then from that, it's evaluations. So my coaches are evaluated by me, and then I'm evaluated by my athletic director. And then I feel like I'm always evaluated by parents and athletes. And
Always.
so because, we have a pretty good line of communication and we do exit interviews with all our kids, that's kind of the evaluation for myself and for the program and how we can make things better in the future. So I do not have the parents fill one out. I can kind of tell by the kids one how the parents would respond. But we do some pretty cool things to try to get an idea of, like, what the expectations are at the beginning of the season for child and parent, and then wrapping up at the end, what went well, what didn't, went well, any suggestions, things they like, didn't like. Were their coaches great? Did they learn a lot? I'm learning more and more, though, when you do these evaluations, the amount of time they play tends to impact their experience. And I don't know if we're ever going to get away from that, because I think there's two things, like winning kind of cures some things a little bit. But then playing also takes away some of those headaches. And so when you're looking at, like, the freshman level, the kids that played all the time wanted to play more, and the kids who didn't get in a lot wanted to play more. So all those things are going on at the same time. But I think as a coach, you just have to take it all with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I had a guest on my show a while back, and he said something that I really found valuable. He said when they met with a parent and athlete, they would discuss the OFP, overall future potential, and it allowed them to get maybe some clarity at the beginning. This is where we see you. This is where we think you could get. Now let's develop a plan for getting there. And that player may not like that OFP. And I would argue that OFP could change over time, maturation, physiological changes, etc. But I liked the overall idea of just making it clear from the beginning where you saw that person's talent or where you thought they could get. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, parents often think a little bit better about their kids than maybe their kids are.
I always say they have their rose-colored glasses on. They have their parent goggles. I don't know. We have all sorts of things for it, but you have to, ultimately, the parent want what's best for their one child. And as a coach, we want what's best for all 12 or 14 or 48 in the whole program. And sometimes what's best isn't always even. It's just not possible. But I think the more you can advocate for, like, role acceptance, I like the OFP, overall future potential. But potential, again, means they haven't done anything yet. This is where I think you can be, but you're going to have to work hard to get to that point. And I don't know if kids now really understand the amount of work it takes to get to that level. So you might have the athleticism, you might have a great skill set, but you might be missing the work ethic piece, right? So then it's, where do you put your focuses on? And then the parents are like, what do you mean? My kid goes every day. And I'm like, well, I go every day too, but it doesn't mean that every day I'm 100% all in. I might have one day where I'm really tired, and another kid might be out working me or whatever it might be. I just think that there has to be a little perspective on that, but I do like that idea.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about your exit interview. I'm curious what kind of questions you're asking. I don't think I've had anybody on the show talk about this, so I'm curious what you would ask an athlete as they walk out the door for your program.
Yeah, it kind of varies year to year,
Okay.
but it covers kind of our core values as a program, and basically they rank their season. So out of 1 to 10, what would you give your season? We get a couple 5s. 7 is pretty normal. 7, 8, 9, 10 are like really what we get, which is really good. I believe I want 90% satisfaction rate in my program. And so when we have these conversations. I meet with every kid from the one that plays the least on the freshman team to the varsity star. And we evaluate, we ask if they enjoyed their coaches, what their coaches did well, were their practices well run, what did they get better at, what do they think they need to improve on for next year, what are they doing between now and next year to get better. Did they enjoy like the off-season stuff, comments, suggestions, I mean, all the things. But a lot of times they fill the form out, and then I sit and I really start with that number. Hey, you gave us a 5. Why was your season a 5? And then we kind of dive into it. And sometimes it's stuff that's on the form, and sometimes it's not. Google Forms is a great asset to any coach, because you can find out a lot of information really fast. During the season with varsity, we did reflection forms. And so those forms, could be based on past performances, what they need to get better at, because a lot of kids don't journal, but it kind of gives us an opportunity to get in their heads. The exit interview is like a big summation of the whole season. So do you feel like you improved? What do you improve upon most? What do you wish you had a better opportunity to improve upon? Because that could help us with practice layout in the future, more time for some training or maybe less time for training. But yeah, just kind of the overall experience in the program. And the freshmen meet with me, the sophomores, the juniors, and the seniors. And the seniors, theirs is a very like full circle. We put in 4 years. We love this, this, and this. We didn't like this, maybe try this. And so that's a very like almost adult conversation that I have with those kids.
Can you give me an example of an exit interview where you've been able to implement something that one of the players or the team has suggested?
Yeah, I could probably give you multiple, actually. I did an exit interview with a junior last year, so she was a senior this year. And when we do positional training, like say it's an offense day and we're doing positional, my hitters are working like different shots, tools, overpass, offense-oriented type things. And then the passers are doing serve receive. And so when we would have an offense practice, I had a lot of my hitters doing that, but my 6 rotation players weren't getting as much serve receive. And so that person came in and she's like, is there any way that we can, like, I need more reps on defense, or, because we'd have them blocking on defense. And then I call them the littles, but my defensive specialists would be the diggers. So this year we implemented what I called extra reps, and they got 15 minutes at the end of practice to work on whatever they wanted. Mm-hmm. And so varsity usually has 2 courts in the main gym. And so there might be a group that wants to work on setter hitter connection, and then another group that wants to do serve receive, and then another person who wants to work on their serve. So then those guys get together, and it's almost like free play, but with purpose. So yeah, that was a big one, was the extra reps one. And then I'm going to modify that again going into next year, because not all kids were like the freshman level did not understand how to do extra reps on their own. It was 14-year-olds, not very great, not great with it. The older kids, hey, coach, can you hit me down the line? Yes. Mm-hmm. Can I work on blocking? Yes. And then it was really easy to get them in their places. But next year, I think we're going to have a little bit more organized extra reps at the beginning. And then that'll allow then my coaches to get here from work and whatever else. So every year we get a little something that I tweak. And it maybe didn't work great the first time, but then we just tweak it a little bit more, and it usually ends up being pretty good.
Yeah, I use the term deliberate play. We want our players to experiment, try new things, work on things that they want, but in a structured manner, as opposed to quote unquote messing around. And I think that's something that a lot of coaches forget. It's everything is structured. We have to do it this way. You can only do it this way. And we lose perhaps some of the creativity in our players because of that.
Yeah, and in volleyball, it's weird because basketball, you just go down to the playground and you play, and obviously in Florida, you probably have a little more access to like outdoor nets, but in the winter here, basketball's in the gym. We don't have access to those things. They have club, everything's structured. And I read a book, and I can't remember off the top of my head which one it was, but it talked a lot about free play. And if we think back to it, I deal with high school kids, but I think at any level, it's a game, and a game should bring you joy. And I think as soon as we turn that switch to this is a job, I have to do this, it takes some of the joy out of it. And so I think free play allows for that joy to creep back in. And then if you have joy, then you have a lot better chance of success.
Just taking notes, Renee, for later. I've got some great thoughts from what you've been talking about.
Good.
But from the perspective of coaching, a lot of people want to be called coach. They want to have that moniker. They want to have almost the respect that comes with the title coach. But coaching is not easy, as you and I both know. I wonder if you could just share maybe some of the realities or challenges of being a high school coach.
Oh man, so many. Um, the time, because in high school you're teaching all day, and then you go to coach, and your pay isn't going to pay the bills, so you have to teach all day. So that's definitely one of them. Making teams, having to cut kids. You don't get to pick who you get what you get, and then you have to make teams out of that. I think that's all very hard. Every parent wants their kid to have the best possible opportunity, and that's not always possible, or it doesn't align. Our vision doesn't align with the parents' vision. And so, I mean, I can go all the way back to one of my first years back in Omaha, because I was in Lincoln. I played in Lincoln, and I coached at a high school there as an assistant with a legendary coach named Myron Olerking. And I was an assistant, and I was still like a college kid, so I was like the fun assistant. Everybody loved me. And then you get to like a certain age, and then you're no longer the fun young assistant. Now you're like the head coach, and you're not the one that they're going to all the time. But my first job back, I coached at a club here in Omaha, and I had a father grab my arm and like, "What the hell are you doing?" Like, I'm like, okay, well, I don't know if this is for me, because I'm 22 years old and this person's touching me. I don't know why they're touching me. And I thought I was doing the best I could do. So that was an eye opener then. And then the next school I was at had a lot of lower income kids, but also a lot of really good kids. So I don't want that to be misconstrued, but you'd have parents that don't show up to like senior night, or they would show up drunk or whatever. So then you're dealing with like, these kids have a completely different life outside of your friendly confines of the gym. And so then you become more of a like mentor, someone who, you know, they're excited to come see you, and it doesn't matter if they're good or bad at volleyball. They're just happy to be in the gym. And so you want to give them a little bit more, because maybe they're not getting it at home. And then now I'm in a private Catholic school, which everyone would say we're rich. We're not rich. But it's one of those where it's a different expectation now. So now there's this expectation that you win. And so now everybody's so consumed with that they forget that how you get there is not by thinking about winning. It's about a lot of other things underneath the surface. And so I think the stress of the job sometimes is a lot, especially, I didn't share really my history. We've been in the state finals 11 times in a row. And this year we broke our streak of 9 straight state championships. So we lost in the state championship this year. We lost 10 years ago. So that was our 11-year streak. But that was really hard. Like, you don't want to send a class out not winning when all they've seen is winning. And so they think that that's just what's supposed to happen. And so I think there's a lot of pressure depending on where you're at. But I think no matter where you're at, because I think every parent thinks coaching is easy, and it's not. I think coaching is probably one of the hardest, thankless, selfless jobs you can have. And if you don't know how to take it with a good perspective and a good attitude, that it can be very overwhelming. And so it's not, I always tell people it's not all flowers and ponies. There's crying. I've kicked kids out of the gym. We always come back stronger no matter what that adversity was. And I think that's part of having a really strong, like, basement culture, I don't know, watering the roots. I always think of John Gordon, the seed, it's all about how much can you water your roots and really like build from the underneath the soil to the tree that builds up. But it is a job that when you're winning and things are going well, you're the smartest person in the room. And as soon as something goes bad, you're an idiot. And it could all happen within 1 year. You could be the greatest person ever 1 year, and the same parent think you're an idiot the next year. And so you just have to kind of just be true to you and not get caught up in the ebbs and flow of the emotions of the people on the outside.
Last question. Thinking about your experiences, good, bad, ugly, whatever, any specific advice for coaches?
You got to just be you. Like, you can't, if you're not a yeller, don't yell. If you're not someone who's going to be emotionally, like, two things. Number one, be true to you. Just be who you are. Number two, have emotion, but don't be emotional. I think that that's a really, really big one. And then something that I've been trying more recently is I had done a book club interview with this Paralympic coach from Canada. And she was talking about coaching to her values.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't matter what happened in that gym as long as she coached to her values. And so I coached a 18 and under club team this year, and I experimented with it because I've never really looked at it that way. I've been the same person in the gym every way, but I wasn't cognizant of what my values were as I did it. And so I kind of sat down and I evaluated, what are my 4 biggest values and can I coach to them every time I go in the gym? And so mine are love, inspire, consistent, and optimist. And if I can go in the gym and do those 4 things every day, then I think that the outcome should take care of itself. And I think that that was a big shift from the team is an extension of the coach. So I think if you're emotional and all those things, your team's going to be emotional. If you're not putting the outcome focus all the time and you're focused on just empowering your players, inspiring your players, and doing those things, then I feel like you're going to get more out of them and take some of that focus for them off of that winning mentality, if that makes sense to you. So it's almost like a second scorecard, you could call it, for the coach. Obviously, you still have to make great practice plans and be organized and be really intentional. But when I step in that gym, if I'm not coaching with love and optimism and consistency and trying to inspire those kids to do a little bit more, then I did not do my job that day. And so it's not their fault if they didn't necessarily achieve their goal, because that's my job to help them do that. So I think coaching to your values has become a really big one in my head, being consistent and then being true to yourself, for sure.
Yeah, and I would encourage anybody listening now or in future, have values.
Yes.
A lot of coaches just don't know what is important to them, what their values are. And so you ask them to coach their values. Nobody really knows what they are, including the coach. Therefore, how does the athlete or parent or athletic director or whoever know what makes you make the decisions that you make, the approach that you bring in? So thank you so much. That was great content. If somebody wants to reach out to you, I know most people watch this after the show or listen to our podcast. How can they reach you with questions or just to network even?
I'm on X, formerly known as Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. All those are public. And I'm coach__Saunders. And my email is reneesaunders@scutcatholic.com. And so any of those works for me. I love networking. Facebook is no longer friends. It's a network. I'm on LinkedIn, but I'm not really on LinkedIn. I have it, but it's probably not the best way to get a hold of me. I check my socials probably once a day. Depends on if I'm posting for high school volleyball or not. But for the most part, my email is probably the best, especially if you need something. That's my to-do list. But just to network, social media, I'm there.
And for those of you listening to the podcast, it's Renee, Renee Saunders, Saunders at skuttcatholic.com. Well, Renee, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you sharing a little bit of your insight and wisdom. And just a reminder, we're going to take a break for the summer. We're going to be back in the fall with more guests. Just a reminder while I'm here, we got a new book coming out, Reflections of the Coaching Life, Volume 2. Renee will be in Volume 3, which is why I was taking some notes. But Volume 2 is coming out in the next couple of weeks. You can find it on Amazon or whatever. So I hope you take advantage of that. It is a compilation of the interviews that we do, some of the books that we've been reading. We put it all together to help coaches in a very short reflection each and every day. So Renee, thanks again. My name is Tim Baghurst. We'll see you after the summer, but thanks so much for watching.